Bonjour. Bienvenue à FIU. J'ai étudié le français, mais j'ai tout oublié. Je m'appelle Irma. That's it. Good morning. My name is Irma Becerra Fernandez, and I'm honored to be here with such distinguished guests from the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Consul General of France in Miami, and French nationals abroad. Welcome to FIU. Welcome to our home. I have served the university in a number of academic and administrative positions, and I'm currently the Vice President for Engagement, a position that gives me the privilege of working closely with business and community leaders and on certain topics like improving student learning, innovation, collaboration, and engagement. Community engagement is at the heart of this university. FIU, as a public urban serving institution, sees itself as a solution center, working closely with the community to help solve some of the difficult problems that our community is facing. We are constantly looking for opportunities to expand our collaborations, and we certainly look for the opportunity to create new collaborations with our friends from France. The initiatives that are supported by the Office of Engagement are essentially supporting three pillars. They either foster innovation through a collaborative like the Life Sciences South Florida that seeks to nurture the nascent life sciences industry here in the South Florida area. We also look to grow the talent of our students by promoting, for example, service learning courses where the students participate in an active way through a service component together with their faculty. And also we look for opportunities that help develop the community, like, for example, collaborations that we have with some of the public schools here in Miami to help improve the schools so that all the students achieve scholastically and are ready for an education here at FIU. Our office is also currently pursuing internships, in particular international internships. And just this summer, we had the first partnership with the OHL construction company in Madrid, where some of our students from FIU participated in an internship in Madrid. So perhaps we can look for opportunities for our students to also participate in internships in France. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Shlomi Dinar, who's the Associate Director for Academics in the School of International and Public Affairs. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to try speaking in French because it's not going to sound very good. But good morning. Welcome to the School of International Public Affairs. It's a pleasure to host you here in the broad auditorium. So welcome. Minister Mouret, Ambassador Delegate, and Consul General Ledrilliard, welcome to FIU. Welcome to the School of International Public Affairs. Before formally introducing Hilarion Martinez, who will formally introduce the speaker for today, I'd like to thank our co-sponsors, and there are a number of them. They include, obviously, the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Consul General of France in Miami, the Miami, Florida European Union Center of Excellence, the European Studies Program, the Department of Global and Sociocultural Studies, and of course, the Ruth K. and Shepard Broad Distinguished Lecture Series that largely made this possible. So now indeed, let me not delay and call to the podium the Associate Provost and Senior International Officer, Mr. Hilarion Martinez.
Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to have the honor to introduce our very distinguished guest speaker today. And before I do that, I would like to also recognize some of our other distinguished members in the audience. First is His Excellency, the Ambassador of France to the United States, François Delattre. Good pronunciation? Perfect. Thank you. This is Ambassador Delatre's second visit to FIU. He was here a few months ago where he gave a beautiful lecture about relations between the United States and France. So thank you, Mr. Ambassador, and we hope that you come back to visit us again and again as often as you can. I also would like to welcome the fairly recently arrived Consul General from France. His name is the Honorable Philippe Letrillard. Philippe Letrillard joined the Foreign Service here for France in Miami recently. So we're very happy to have you in our city, and welcome to FIU. And we look forward to working with you and your wife and your team at the Consulate General of France as you're here and as you spend your time with us in South Florida. And I wanted to see if the Consul General from Germany wasn't here. We also have the Honorary Consul from Monaco, who's here, Thomas Abreu, and he's here. Okay, you already met Irma Becerra, our Vice President for Engagement. The talk today is going to be on economic relations between the United States and France. And we're very honored to have Hélène Conway-Mouret, our Minister Delegate for French nationals abroad here at Florida International University. The Minister Delegate position, since we're here at a university and the School of International and Public Affairs, I just wanted to make a couple comments. It's a very unique position that does not exist in the United States. And under the Foreign Minister, which is under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, equivalent to the Department of State for the United States, there are 4 Minister Delegates only. So we're very honored to have one of the 4 here with us. The other 3 competencies that are covered by the Minister Delegates are European affairs, and that is the person in charge of all the relations between France and the European Union, development, and francophonie. And the 4th is the French nationals abroad, and that's why our guest today is the Minister Delegate for French nationals abroad. Our minister has had numerous elected offices throughout her career, and let me mention some of the highlights so you have an idea what a wonderful career and wonderful experience as a public servant for her country she has already had. She has been a senator for French nationals living abroad. She was the secretary of the French National Assembly Foreign Affairs Committee and National Defense and Armed Forces Committee. She's a member of the Parliamentary Delegation for the Rights of Women and Equal Opportunities between men and women, and a member of the boards of the Institute of Higher National Defense Studies and the Agency for French Education Abroad. And education is very much part of the experience and the life and the commitment of our speaker today. Education is part of her life. When I met her today and I asked her how did she end up in Ireland, she said, well, I was French and I already spoke German, and I knew that I needed to speak English. So I just chose a place where I thought that I could learn to speak English, and she chose Ireland. I wish she would have chosen Miami and FIU, but we were not here. But you chose Ireland, a beautiful, beautiful place. So her degrees are from Trinity College Dublin, one of the best universities in the world, and also from the University of Ulster, which is in the island of Ireland, but in the United Kingdom, because it's in the city of Belfast in Northern Ireland. As a university professor, so she's no stranger to the university environment. Minister Conway-Mouret headed the Dublin Institute of Technology, the School of Foreign Languages, for 14 years. So it is my pleasure to introduce the minister, and we look forward to hearing your words and to enjoying your lecture today. Thank you.
I feel very humble after hearing all of that about myself. Anyway, before I start, maybe I'll share something personal with you, which is that it has been some time since I stood in front of a large group of students, and I realized that I miss it. I miss this special moment where one comes with a message to share with others. And the message today is a simple one. It's one of friendship between a small country in terms of geography. France is a small country, but I'm trying to demonstrate that maybe it is a little bit larger than just the size within its own borders. Anyway, it's a message really of friendship that I came with here, and I'm happy to share it. And for that, I would like to thank you for being here, and I would like to thank also the Miami, Florida European Union Center of Excellence, and particularly its Associate Director, Christine Cali, who organized this event. The reason why I'm here today with the French ambassador to the United States of America and the Consul of France in Miami is because you are bound, all of you, I think, to play a part to the special relationship that links Florida, the USA, and France. On June 6th of next year, we will be celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Normandy landings, which sealed the destiny of our two countries. Let's never forget that the United States and France owe each other the very existence as free nations. Let's never forget that from Yorktown to the beaches of Normandy, our two countries have always stood shoulder to shoulder to promote the values of freedom and democracy that we together gave the world over 200 years ago. This is still the case today. The US and France are each other's closest allies in the fight against terrorism, as illustrated by the French military operation in Mali, with much appreciated American support to combat Al-Qaeda in Africa. In the same vein, our two countries are in the forefront of international effort to stop the bloodshed in Syria and find a political solution to put an end to this conflict. Based on these shared values and commitments, the French government wants to create the very best conditions for a flourishing business partnership between our two countries. My visit here today is to reinforce the special bonds of friendship that unite France and Florida. We want to foster American investment in France and help French companies establish here in Florida. The French Minister for Foreign Affairs, Laurent Fabius, has defined supporting French businesses abroad as a priority for our diplomacy, and that's why I am accompanied today by two French diplomats. Cross-investment is key to this partnership. The number one foreign investor in France is the United States of America. At the same time, US exports to France represent $30 billion per year. To give you an idea of size, that's roughly the annual budget of a small country like the size of Ireland. France is among the top 5 foreign investors here in America. There are almost 3,000 French companies in this country, employing 600,000 people. Florida is particularly attractive to French companies. 450 of them employ 200,000 people in this state. French exports to Florida rose by 25% over 1 year, particularly in the area of transportation, equipment, IT, electronics, chemical, and pharmaceutical products. In France, as well as in Florida, innovation, research, and development must remain our #1 priority. Our government actively supports the development of clusters in all strategic sectors, bringing together the universities, research centers, and the industry. In the same spirit, and I think this is one strength for France, France has established the highest R&D tax credit in the world. Companies investing in France can avail from some of the best universities and research centers. France is one of the world's leaders in innovation, #2 in Europe, #6 in the world in terms of the number of patents. For the second year in a row, 12 French companies are cited in the world's 100 most innovative companies. Some of these names will be familiar to you. I would like to pay tribute to Alcatel, Lucent, Arkema, EADS, L'Oréal, Michelin, Saint-Gobain, Thales, Safran, and Valeo. 3 French public research centers are also among the 12. The French Center for Atomic Energy, CEA, the National Center for Research in Science, CNRS, and IFP, Énergie Nouvelle. Another strength of ours is the fact that we have one of the best qualified workforce in Europe and in the top 3 in terms of productivity per hour. In addition, France is one of the greenest countries in the Northern Hemisphere. Our greenhouse gas emission to GDP ratio is lower than the Americans, the British, the German, and the Japanese ratio. Let's have a short quiz now. Who among you can tell me France's ranking worldwide in terms of GDP? Sorry? Yes, excellent. Who is #1? You, of course. And then comes China, la Chine. So you have USA, China, Japan, Germany, and France. So we're #5. And for its capacity to attract foreign investment, France is ranked at, let's have a guess, at #4. Our country is at the heart of Europe, and it is leading the way in key industrial areas. A few days ago in Atlanta, I took part in a cross-investment forum on the aerospace industry and pharmaceuticals. I should mention other areas like the agro-food sector, the IT sector, and the chemical industry. There are 35 French companies in the world's top 500, ranking us first in the EU. Paris is one of the most important financial centers in the world, with 4 French banks in the top 50 safest financial institutions. France is the main gateway to the Eurozone, the largest single market in the world, 500 million consumers, 20% of the world GDP. I would also like to mention the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, which is currently under discussion between the EU and the US. It will help solve the regulatory puzzle and boost transatlantic trade. The EU-US trade relationship is already the biggest in the world, and every trade barrier we remove can result in significant economic gains on both sides of the Atlantic. The EU has recently adopted a plan to make sure the single currency remains stable and sustains growth. The USA and Europe are each other's most important markets. The transatlantic economy generates close to $5 trillion in commercial sales, half of the world's wealth. Let's focus now on the partnership between France and the USA in terms of education and scientific research. There are more than 800 bilateral university agreements between our two countries. France is the 4th world destination for Americans who study overseas. And I hope that we will be welcoming a lot of students from here in the future. In science, the USA is France's first partner. Some figures are impressive. For example, we have 7,000 joint scientific publications. In addition, there are prestigious partnerships supported by the French government. They combine the private sector, universities, and public research labs. I would like to mention the Partnership University Fund, created in 2007 to promote university collaborations. A few days ago, the Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to a PUF laureate. In 2002, the University of Columbia joined forces with Sciences Po, Polytechnique, and the Sorbonne University to create the Alliance Program. This is an innovative joint venture aimed at sharing knowledge, practices, and resources. FIU students can access international student exchange programs with some prestigious French business schools, such as Clermont ESC or Schema. Studying overseas is, or should be, an essential part of the curriculum for someone who wants to work in international trade. This is why university partnerships are so critically important for us and for you. And I will end with a word from Thomas Jefferson, who said once, every man, he should have said every woman too, has two countries, his own and France. So now you know what you have to do. Thank you very much, and merci.
Thank you so much, Madam Minister, for those wonderful words. We could tell that you're a professor by the quiz. I don't know if I would have gotten all of them right, but I let the students answer for me, just to make sure. How about some questions for the minister? Okay, we want to show them the FIU, the I in FIU. Come on, questions for the minister? Yeah, come up here. Sir, back there. How can we engage more globally in countries with countries like France? How can the United States or are you talking about FIU? How can students become more involved globally, especially with countries like France? How can these students become more involved?
I gave a very short interview before I came to talk to you, and one of the questions was about the learning of languages. Why is it important to maybe learn French and Spanish? And what I said was that today we still have borders, of course, but I think each of you, when you decide to go and settle somewhere else, you're actually pushing out the borders of the United States, and that's how I feel the French people are doing as well with our small country, that those borders don't exist anymore insofar as we have a world now where communication, transport, and so on are just so easy that you can go to the other end of the world and you're not waiting for a month or two for a letter to come from home. You can actually, with Skype, see mom and talk to mom if you're back over in Australia or whatever. And I think that now the young people have the ability and the opportunity to set up anywhere they want. And for doing that, I think the learning of languages is really essential, because if you have English, Spanish, and French, you can actually communicate with anybody in the world at this point. Even the Chinese speak one of these two languages, because learning Mandarin, it just takes a little bit longer than European languages. But What you can do is I think, have this global view of the world and feel that there are opportunities everywhere. And that's why I'm spending a lot of time on the road or in the air, I will have to say, because I'm traveling from France to where the French people have settled. There's 2.5 million of them abroad, which is not a large number, smaller than other countries, smaller than the Irish have, because there are 4 million back in Ireland, but there are 40 million in the world and quite a few over here in the States. So how to engage is to learn languages, meet people, go over, travel, and be what the Renaissance man was. That is a person who has good experience of the world and don't discover it simply from books. I think human contact is very important. Yesterday I met with the governor here, Rick Scott, who told me that he has very strong links with France because his dad was one of the men who landed in Normandy. And now one of his daughters is married to a Frenchman and she lives in Paris. So that's the world today, and you're going to make the world of your future. So I would encourage you to make those efforts to go out and visit and meet people, and that's how then you see opportunities, and maybe you will set up your life in France in the same way as I did mine in Ireland. I didn't have any intention at the time, at the age of 18, to spend all of my life on a small green island, and I did simply because I think I was curious about the world, because, as I said, I wanted to learn English, and then that brought me to work in a university, to be interested in politics, and to come back to France as a senator and then become minister. So you see, life is full of surprises, but I think if you embrace it fully and retain that curiosity about others, that's how I think you make it in life. As I said, I mentioned a few of the areas where France has some expertise, some savoir-faire that they can export, but that's needed also locally, because you may have a great project, but if the other part doesn't need it or doesn't want it, it doesn't work. Beyond the climate here, I think the French people I've met since yesterday, have all come here because it's a land of opportunity, and I think the States remain that. The people I have met are young, well qualified. They see the opportunity here to progress in their professional life. They're all areas of expertise that are needed. I mean, I visited the tunnel. It's nearly completed. Well, it needs still a little bit of work, of course, before the trucks can go through it. But that's one good example of what France can bring. In order to dig that tunnel, it took more than just a big machine digging a hole. They had to fill some parts in order to be able to extract the material. And it's really high technology and expertise in science that's really top. So that's what we have, and that's what we can bring, and that's how French companies can win some market shares, and are also expected to compete, but be present because of what they can bring. So it's very varied. I mean, it goes from the French pâtisserie, which is also, I think, appreciated, to the top quality scientific expertise that we have maybe this is a diplomatic answer we need, not a political one. I'm not the expert in investment in Cuba. Actually, it's a country where I want to go as well, because we have some French people there, and we have an embassy which is doing very well, and the teaching of French as well with an Alliance Française, which is central to La Havane. I was there a few years ago visiting, but it was a private visit. I think France has, in terms of foreign affairs, various partnerships. We do not select countries because I should put it in a positive way. We select countries because they're friends to France. And if those countries have a disagreement with another country, it doesn't always come into being a barrier for us to actually not do business with a particular country. So Cuba is a friend of France in the same way as the United States of America are. And I think, we're dealing with those two countries within the limits of the partnership that we can have and the needs and opportunities of those countries.
Let's do maybe one more question, because I know that you have to be going for your next appointment, right, Mr. Ambassador? Two more questions. We got two. How about a couple more questions?
Easy ones.
Yeah, easy ones, okay.
Since we touched on Cuba, I was wondering, since the French government is making apparent efforts to foster relationship with students from the beginning, as we are going to have a role in international relations in the future, what's the French government's, at least, are they relationship with lesser developed countries and their universities? Are they making the same efforts as they are in the United States, or is it just mainly focusing on countries that have large market shares?
No, especially in Africa, we have actually an area of expertise in education, which is called the Institut Universitaire de Technologie, IUTs. They are third-level institutions, but not offering classical studies, more centered on technical and professional studies. And it's one area that we can develop in Africa, because the university professors I know are extremely well qualified. Most of them have done their doctorates in the West, and then they go back to their homeland and teach in their home university. And while we can have partnerships and sometimes, co-direction for a thesis, for instance, we don't have very much to bring to these universities. However, in that area, we do have that, and for the first time, we will be opening one IUT in Morocco shortly, with the intention to expand with this type of studies. But I think we need to be there where we're needed and where we have expertise and the savoir-faire that can be shared. We're not there to conquer new markets, or of course the business world does that, but in terms of education, we're still very much with the attitude of a language that we feel carries a certain number of values, and I think those are even more important nowadays. I mentioned a few minutes ago Syria and the Middle East, and all these countries that are going through turmoil, and the values that we share with you of democracy, of freedom, of fraternity as well. I mean, all of these are just essential today, and that's the logic that we're pursuing. We've nearly 500 schools, secondary schools, primary and secondary schools in the world, set up in 130 countries. And what we do, we teach over 100,000 French kids, because their families move from one country to the other, but we also teach over 200,000 foreign kids. And those families made the choice to put their children in a French school simply for the added value of having that other language and that other culture. And on a human level, this is a very important factor. It's intellectually stimulating, but I think it's just enlarging your perspective of life and what you can do as well. And so that's what we're doing. The business world is one where indeed one needs to be maybe aggressive and so on. And I think the education world ought to retain what it does best, that is just to share knowledge and make people better.
Bonjour. Ministre Conway-Mouret. My name is Maria Dreyfus. I'm with the Office of Economic Development and International Trade of Miami-Dade County, the local government. I'm very pleased to listen to your presentation because it's always refreshing to hear that if you want to pursue international trade or international affairs, you have to also learn different languages. And I appreciate that as an American, someone that comes from Latin America with a French background, because I'm also French national. So I really appreciate your words. And the reason why I learned French is because of the Alliance Française and the role the Alliance Française plays in all of the countries all around the world, including Latin America. That's where I learned French, and it started as a small French school in my home country, Nicaragua. So I would like to know, what is the status of the Alliance Française here? I was very sad to hear that they closed their office, and so I know they're offering some courses, but it's not what they used to teach before, or the program that they used to teach before. And I think that it's very important, because languages you learn when you're small, and it takes years to really master a language. So I would like to have your views on Alliance Française, the importance, what do you think, and what is the status of Alliance Française here in Miami in particular?
There's over 1,000 Alliance Françaises in the world. Yeah, it's true that it's easier to learn a language when one is small, but one can learn it, and I think I'm one example, a little bit later, and still master it, maybe not perfectly, but still I've made much progress since the age of 18 in English anyway. The status, it's an association based on the local Association de Droit Local, the local legislation, American law. And as it is an association, of course, it has the right to get bigger or disband, and while there is a head office in Paris, this is only a school in Paris where they also teach French to all the foreign people who come to Paris, and apart from their cultural experience, add the learning of French to their stay. But we don't have any control from France, from Paris. Each of them is independent to run their show as an association, and it's based on the local legislation. So I think, if you have some fears about the Alliance or the teaching of French here, maybe the Consul General will be able to see what can be done. And in any case, we have decided with the French ambassador that we will look very closely as to how we can boost the teaching and learning of French here in Florida, because the demand is real. And I think, within local schools, we can help as well, be more present. But so we will be doing that. Anyway, thank you for your questions. It was a real pleasure to meet you, and you gave me that chance to go back and stand in front of a group of students, and I really appreciated that.
Well, I just want to say a couple words to wrap up, and thank you, Madam Minister. And I think we have a lot still to learn from the French. The position that you have as minister for citizens abroad, it's a position that we do not have in the United States, and I wish we would, because we have many American citizens all over the world. So you do a wonderful job representing them, representing French culture, representing French people. And thank you again for all the opportunities you had in the United States to visit various cities, that you chose to come to Miami and you chose to come to FIU. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Ambassador and Mr. Consul General, and everyone and all of you for being here today.